There are certain things you expect to find in a small town. A main street, a post office, maybe a general store. There's likely a town square, perhaps with a slightly rusty swing set and a bench dedicated to someone named Mildred. What you do not expect to find under any circumstances is a duck. We are talking about a duck of monumental proportions. A duck that stands 30 feet tall. The first time you see it, your brain struggles to process the information. Tiny town, massive duck. It raises so many questions, chief among them being, who on earth thought, you know what this place needs? A waterfowl the size of a house. This giant duck is a glorious, unapologetic monument to the wonderfully weird. It's a story waiting to be told, a mystery hiding in plain sight. Imagine waking up in your sleepy town. You pull back your curtains, ready to greet another ordinary day. Except today is not ordinary, because today there is a 30-foot duck outside your window. It wasn't there yesterday. For the residents, this was a reality. The arrival of the duck was a phenomenon. It was as if a spaceship had landed, only this one was shaped like a giant duck. Neighbors gathered, pointing and whispering. The speculation ran wild, fueled by confusion, amusement, and a tiny bit of alarm. It's about what happens when the surreal crashes into the mundane. It's a tale of how one small community reacted to having its quiet world turned upside down. It sparked conversations and put a town you've never heard of squarely on the map. Sometimes, all you need is a ridiculously oversized bird and a community with a sense of humor. We are about to dive headfirst into one of the strangest, most charming stories you'll ever hear. To understand the absurdity of the duck, you have to understand the town. Let's call it Dunsville. Dunsville is profoundly tiny. The map makers might miss it entirely. The town sign announces a population that barely scrapes into the triple digits. Everyone knows your name and your grandfather's. Getting to Dunsville requires effort. You have to want to go there. It's a cluster of houses, a church, and a sleepy main street. A town in a gentle bubble, disconnected from the outside world. The geography is unassuming. Its beauty is quiet and modest. A scene of simple rural charm, unchanged for generations. A strange place for a 30-foot tall bird. Before the duck, Dunsville's claim to fame was its annual pie baking contest. Life was measured in seasons and community traditions. A place defined by its smallness and unwavering sense of normal. Into this normal, the giant duck was about to waddle. Life in Prairie Dunsville moved at a different speed. It was a world without rush hour, where the only traffic jam might involve a farmer moving his cows. Mornings began with the clink of milk bottles and the smell of coffee. The town's cafe served as an unofficial morning parliament, where locals would gather. It was a life of small moments, simple pleasures, and deep interconnected roots. The social fabric of the town was woven tightly. Entertainment was a homespun affair. It was a simple, unadorned existence, but it was rich in a way that modern life often isn't. This was the world that existed before duck. It was a place of quiet dignity, a community that took pride in its heritage. It was perfectly content being Dunsville, a small, forgotten speck on the map. They had everything they thought they needed. They had no idea that their quiet little world was about to be gate-crashed by a creature of such epic proportions. At the heart of Dunsville, long before any giant statues appeared, there was a specific kind of small-town character. It's this blend of fierce independence and, honestly, an almost startling level of community reliance. These are folks who, can fix their own tractor, mend their own roof, and grow their own vegetables. They're self-sufficient by nature and, by necessity. Yet, if a neighbor's barn burns down, the entire town will be there the next morning with hammers, lumber, and casseroles. They might argue over property lines for years, but they will come together in a crisis without a moment's hesitation. It's this paradox of stubborn individualism and a pretty profound collective spirit. This spirit, it's often expressed through a dry, understated sense of humor. In a place where everyone knows everyone else's business, Gossip is a currency, but it's usually tempered with a wry wit. People tease each other relentlessly, but honestly, it's a sign of affection. They find amusement in the small absurdities of daily life. The postman who is afraid of poodles, the prize-winning pumpkin that looks suspiciously like the mayor. This isn't the loud, performative humor of the city. It's more of a quiet, knowing chuckle shared between people who have a deep understanding of each other's quirks and, foibles. It's a humor born of familiarity. There is also a deep-seated skepticism of the outside world. To the people of Dunsville, big cities are noisy, complicated places full of strangers and strange ideas. They're proud of their town's isolation. They see it not as a weakness, but as a shield protecting them from the chaos and anonymity of modern life. This doesn't mean they're unfriendly. Actually, quite the opposite. Visitors are often treated with a warm, genuine curiosity. But there's this unspoken understanding that the Dunsville way of doing things is the right way, or at least, the right way for them. They are guardians of a culture that values tradition over trends. This then was the town in its purest form. Proud, self-reliant, humorous, and a little wary of anything too new or too different. It was a community with a strong identity, forged over generations of shared experience. And it is this very soul, this unique combination of independence, humor, and tradition that would be put to the ultimate test. How would a town like this react to the most bizarre, most outlandish, most undeniably different thing it had ever seen? The stage was set. The characters were in place. All that was missing was the 30-foot-tall guest of honor. Every great creation begins with a single audacious thought. For the Dunsville duck, that thought belonged to Arthur P. Finnegan. Arthur, a retired engineer, was known around town as a lovable eccentric. He believed every town needed something that made people stop and smile. Dunsville, he felt, lacked a certain pizzazz. Why a duck? Well, why not? Nobody ignores a 30-foot-tall duck. So, armed with a strange but sincere conviction, Arthur decided to give his town a gift. He began sketching designs and clearing land at the edge of town. The spark of madness had been struck, and soon it would ignite into a very large, very yellow spectacle. A project this strange needed a story to anchor it to the town's history. Arthur needed a narrative. He began spending evenings in the town archives, poring over old maps and forgotten town records. There he discovered the legend of the miller's duck. According to Arthur's tale, the original gristmill had a mascot, Phyllis, a duck of unusual size and intelligence. He could supposedly predict the weather. He became a symbol of the town's prosperity. The miller swore the town's luck was tied to a duck on the creek. Conveniently, all records of the duck were lost in a fire. It was a perfect, unverifiable piece of local mythology. The story was charming, folksy, and gave the project a soul. It was a classic case of a lie becoming a legend because people wanted it to be true. Arthur was building a founding myth, and his giant duck would be a monument to a hero. With his life savings, Arthur began construction. He converted his barn into a secret workshop. The first step was a scale model, tinkering for months to get it just right. He obsessed over the gentle curve of its beak. This was to be a happy sentinel for his town. The duck's skeleton was a complex web of welded steel. Neighbors heard strange noises, fueling rumors he'd lost his mind. The duck's skin was wire mesh, covered with fiberglass and resin. It was messy, smelly, arduous work. He enlisted teenagers for the summer. Slowly, the frame took on the shape of a duck. Arthur chose a vibrant, cheerful yellow. The beak was orange, the eyes black. As the final coat was applied, it was a presence. This 30-foot-tall bird was an awesome, ridiculous, and beautiful sight. The behemoth was ready. All that was left was to introduce it to the world. The operation was planned with military precision. Arthur knew that simply announcing his project would lead to committees, permits, and endless debates. He opted for a different strategy: shock and awe. In the dead of night, under the cover of a moonless sky, Arthur and his small, loyal crew executed their plan. They used a heavy-duty crane, borrowed from a cousin in the next county to lift the colossal duck from its barn womb. The journey from the barn to its designated concrete pedestal at the edge of town was a slow, surreal procession. A 30-foot duck trundling through the sleeping streets of Dunsville is not something you see every day or ever. The placement was a nerve-wracking affair. The crane operator, a man who had lifted freight containers and industrial machinery, confessed he had never been so nervous. Gently, the giant was lowered onto the bolts sticking out of its concrete base. There was a heart-stopping moment when it swayed precariously, but then it settled. It was secure. Arthur, standing back and watching, felt a wave of relief and triumph wash over him. He had done it. His absurd, magnificent dream was now a solid 30-foot reality. The crew quietly packed up and vanished into the night, leaving the duck to greet the dawn alone. The next morning, Dunsville awoke to a new world. The first sightings were met with disbelief. People stopped their cars in the middle of the road. Children pointed, their faces a mixture of awe and delight. Morning coffee drinkers at the daily grind spilled out onto the sidewalks, staring in stunned silence. The town's collective jaw dropped. The duck was there. It was enormous. It was undeniably yellow. And it was staring right at them. The phone lines lit up, not with gossip, but with a single unifying question that echoed from house to house. Have you seen it? Arthur P. Finnegan stayed home that morning, sipping his coffee and watching from his window. He had attached a simple bronze plaque to the base of the statue. It didn't mention him. It simply read, "In honor of the Dunsville Miller's duck, may it watch over this." He had given his town a legend and a landmark all in one night. He had no idea how they would react, whether they would greet it with pitchforks or parades. He had simply built his monument to joy and set it free. The duck had landed, and life in Dunsville would never be the same. The morning after the duck's arrival, Dunsville was split in two. The initial shock fractured into different opinions. Arthur Finnegan had drawn a line down the middle of Main Street. On one side, the enamored, on the other, the appalled. The duck became the only topic of conversation. Dunsville had a controversy, big, yellow, and shaped like a bath toy. For many, the duck was an instant source of joy, a magnificent absurdity. But for every giggle, a scowl. To traditionalists, the duck was a tacky insult, a garish stain. The great divide settled over the town. You could tell where someone stood just by how they looked at it. The duck was a litmus test, forcing Dunsville to ask, what kind of town did they want to be? The outrage brigade, led by librarian Eleanor Vance, made the library their war room, plotting the duck's removal with petitions and fiery speeches at packed council meetings. Eleanor called the statue a monstrosity, a public nuisance, and a threat to Dunsville's dignity. Mr. Abernathy, the town historian, dismantled the Miller's duck myth, insisting the statue was built on lies and dishonored real history. The brigade scoured bylaws, wrote letters, and demanded the duck be dismantled, fearing their town's soul was being replaced by a joke. Council members, unprepared for such passion, sat stunned as the brigade painted a future where Dunsville was just that silly duck town. But beneath the outrage was a genuine desire to protect the town's identity. A fight not just against a statue, but for the Dunsville they loved. The outrage brigade became the voice of tradition, determined to keep absurdity at bay. Meanwhile, the pro-duck crowd, led by Brenda from the general store, saw the statue as a hilarious blessing. Brenda sold out of duck souvenirs, and the town's new mascot brought in curious visitors and fresh business. The duck became a point of pride. Dunsville was finally on the map, and locals leaned into the absurdity with jokes, themed breakfasts, and even a new football team name, the Fighting Ducks. For them, the statue was a symbol of Dunsville's quirky spirit and a welcome break from the ordinary. Arthur Finnegan, once seen as eccentric, was now a full hero, injecting joy into the town. At council meetings, supporters argued that tradition mattered, but so did fun. The duck united them in laughter, turning a punchline into a badge of honor. For this group, the statue wasn't a problem. It was the best thing to happen to Dunsville in years. As months passed, outrage faded and the duck became part of daily life. Legal challenges failed. Arthur had built it on his own land, meeting every code. Slowly, even critics accepted the duck's permanence, and the town's identity shifted. Ducktown caught on, and the annual festival became Duck Fest, complete with parades and floats. Eleanor and Mr. Abernathy found new roles. She welcomed more visitors to the library, and he became the official mythbuster for tourists. The duck, once divisive, became a unifying symbol. A story of eccentricity, conflict, and eventual unity. Arthur's wild dream gave Dunsville a new soul. Prouder, louder, and a whole lot weirder. Life in Dunsville settled into a new normal, with the giant duck as a daily landmark. Joggers touched base for luck, and directions always referenced the statue. Mr. Abernathy's daily walk past the duck, complete with theatrical head-shaking, became a local ritual. The town's soundscape changed, filled with camera clicks and tourist chatter. Arthur's once empty parking lot now overflowed with out-of-state cars. Residents learned to tune out the visitors, finding the duck's presence oddly calming, a daily reminder not to take life too seriously. The statue became a monument to whimsy, proof that even the most ordinary places can embrace the wonderfully weird. The duck's biggest impact? Tourists. Dunsville, once isolated, became a quirky destination for road trippers and statue hunters. Brenda's store thrived with duck-themed merchandise, and the cafe hired extra help for the lunch rush. The statue brought a small economic boom, but also new challenges, like debates over public restrooms and minor Saturday traffic jams. Locals became unofficial tour guides, sharing Arthur's story with pride and bemused detachment. For the first time, residents saw their town through visitors' eyes and realized it was worth seeing. The duck invited the world in, and Dunsville learned to be a gracious, if slightly bewildered, host. The town's quiet charm and newfound weirdness became its greatest attraction. The giant duck became a dynamic part of the town's seasonal celebrations, a canvas for community expression. Living with a duck meant dressing it up for the holidays, an essential part of the town's calendar. At Christmas, volunteers would place a comically oversized Santa hat on its head and string lights around its neck. Each season brought a new opportunity for decoration. For the 4th of July, the duck would be adorned with a giant patriotic bow tie. At Halloween, someone would make it look like a ghost duck. For Easter, a colossal hand-painted Easter egg would be placed at its feet. These grassroots efforts demonstrated the town's collective ownership and affection for its bizarre landmark. The duck also became a backdrop for personal milestones like high school prom photos and wedding portraits. The duck bore silent witness to first dates, family reunions, and birthday celebrations. This solidified the duck's place in the heart of the community. It belonged to everyone. The duck gave the town a reason to gather and celebrate their own eccentricity. Through every season, it stood as a constant reminder of the town's strange and wonderful identity. Perhaps the most touching part of the duck story is its impact on the town's youngest residents. For an entire generation of Dunsville children, the world has never existed without the giant duck. It's not a strange or surprising feature of their town. It's a fundamental part of their childhood landscape, as normal and as present as the sky or the trees. They are the children of the duck, and their relationship with the statue is one of pure, uncomplicated affection. They don't see the controversy or the absurdity. They just see their town's big, friendly bird, a silent guardian that has always watched over them. For these kids, the duck is a source of endless imaginative play. It's a friendly giant in their make-believe stories, a castle they must defend, or a spaceship that will one day fly them to the moon. The small park area around its base is their domain, a place where they have the first picnics, learn to ride their bikes, and meet their friends. Their childhood drawings are filled with lopsided houses, smiling suns, and inevitably a gigantic yellow duck towering over everything. It has shaped their mental map of home, giving them a landmark that is both epic and deeply personal, a symbol of a childhood spent in a very special place. The duck has also become an unlikely educational tool. Teachers at the local elementary school use it to explain concepts of scale and proportion. They organize field trips to the statue for art classes, where students are tasked with drawing or painting it from different angles. The story of its creation has become a local history lesson, a parable about creativity, community, and the importance of embracing new ideas. The duck is not just a landmark, it's a living textbook, teaching the next generation about their town's unique character. Ultimately, the children of the duck are the statue's true legacy. They will grow up and move away, as young people from small towns often do, but they will carry the memory of the duck with them forever. It will be the story they tell their own children, the quirky fact they share about where they came from. They will remember a town that was brave enough, or perhaps silly enough, to build a 30-foot monument to joy. And in this way, Arthur Finnegan's gift will continue to ripple outward, a testament to the idea that one person's eccentric dream can become a community's cherished identity, passed down through generations. Dunsville's giant duck belongs to a family of oversized objects dotting small towns worldwide. This is the kingdom of roadside giants. From the world's largest ball of twine to a giant lumberjack, these monuments celebrate potatoes, pecans, and ducks. They are beautifully weird. Found in small, out-of-the-way places, they are born from a spirit of defiant creativity. Built by local welders and determined dreamers, they are often slightly imperfect and utterly charming. They are giant, concrete expression of a town's soul. Small towns build these spectacles to lure tourist dollars. More than tourist traps, they are totems, a celebration of a town's identity. Arthur Finnegan's duck tells the world that Dunsville is a place of good humor and resilience. Why do small towns build these enormous, strange things? A simple answer is visibility. A small town is easy to miss, a tiny dot on a vast map. A giant statue is a powerful antidote to that feeling of insignificance. It is a beacon, a landmark that cannot be ignored. There is also a deep-seated human need for placemaking. We all want to feel that where we live is special, that it has a unique identity. It has to create its own landmarks from scratch. It's a collective project that says this is who we are the town with a giant duck. These statues also serve as a powerful symbol of optimism. Ultimately, these big weird statues are an assertion of humanity in an increasingly uniform world. They are a celebration of the local, the specific, and the wonderfully eccentric spirit that can be found in the quiet corners of the world. These giant statues are funny. A 30-foot duck is a punchline, a joke written on the landscape. This humor is the most important function these statues serve. They remind us not to take everything so seriously. Life is absurd, and a giant statue of a gopher celebrates that fact. It gives them a common language of absurdity, allowing them to laugh at themselves and with each other. It shows they value joy over dignity and fun over formality. Up Dunsville, they have a massive duck, and they are perfectly fine with that. They are an expression of freedom from the tyranny of good taste. They are choosing wonder over worldliness and delight over dignity. So what have we learned from this tale? Sometimes the most memorable things come from the most unexpected places. One man's eccentric vision changed Dunsville. Arthur P. Finnegan gave his town a new, brighter destiny. The duck became a mirror reflecting the town's character. It revealed the town's capacity to adapt and embrace the thing that once divided it. The duck forced them to define who they were. They chose to be the town with the duck. The legend of the miller's duck has now become a genuine piece of local folklore. It's a story about how a community can create its own myths. The duck has become a real legend as the heart of the town. The story of Dunsville and its duck is a testament to the power of a single bold idea. It was permission for the town to be a little bit weird and celebrate its own unique character. He helped the town build a new, more vibrant version of itself. This journey to Dunsville highlights a larger truth. The world's most wonderful secrets are often hidden in its smallest corners. We often look to big cities for culture and excitement, but innovation can come in many forms. Sometimes it's not a skyscraper, it's a 30-foot duck, challenging our assumptions about where to find inspiration. Small towns are reservoirs of eccentricity, places where dreams come to life. In a small town, a project can become the defining feature and a source of immense pride. These places have the space for the wonderfully weird to flourish, reminding us that a small stage can host the most spectacular of shows. You do not need to be big to make a big statement. Explore the little towns that dot the countryside. You will find the heart of a certain kind of genius and communities that have chosen joy over conformity. The biggest, most wonderful and weirdest things can and often do come in the smallest of packages.